Welcome to Service Headline News. I am your host, Marty Smith, and I'm joined by Eric Perrott.
What's going on, guys?
And Jake Wall.
Hey, Marty. Hey, Eric.
What's up, Jake?
And we're here to bring you the latest headlines and updates pertinent to all servicemen and women. So sit back, get informed, and have a laugh as the Swearing In Podcast presents Service Headline News. Good to have you back, gentlemen. I'm looking forward to this episode.
It's going to be a lot of collaborating.
Well, could be a lot of bickering too.
Awesome.
Well, let's start us off right. Do you have a day in history for us, Eric?
Oh yeah. So sticking with tonight's episode, this event occurred April 18th, 1942. And I'm going to ask you guys if you have any clue, sticking with tonight's episode concerning the top three, our bombers.
It's when
what occurred.
It's the date they first drew the concept of the B-36 Corsair on a napkin in a
Not
bar
going to let
in
that
Brussels.
go, are you? All right, now I can do better than that.
It's the release of Dr. Strangelove.
Good guess. No, ladies and gentlemen, this was the Doolittle raid, April 18th,
the
1942.
Doolittle raid. Well, no kidding. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
That's right.
Nice.
During World War II, the U.S. Army Air Force's bombing raid on Tokyo and other Japanese cities. Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle led 16 B-25 bombers, I don't want to hear it, from the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier Hornet, in a spectacular surprise attack that caused little damage but boosted Allied morale. The raid prompted the Japanese to retain 4 Army fighter groups in Japan during 42 and 43 when they were badly needed in the South Pacific to protect the homeland.
Wow.
The attack also compelled the Japanese, The attack also compelled the Japanese to push beyond their originally planned defensive perimeter, thereby increasing the vulnerability of their supply lines. So it had a lot of other results that they weren't even expecting. The biggest one being,
I didn't realize they held that much back.
Yeah.
They were terrified by the Doolittle raid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
It was all firebombing.
Yeah, it removed a lot of air support for all the southern islands. It removed a bunch of logistical support.
Yeah.
That whole campaign.
So it targeted multiple areas of Tokyo as well as other major Japanese cities such as Yokohama, Yokosuka, and a couple of others, Osaka and Kobe. Within these areas, primary marks included military facilities, factories, and other industrial centers. So when they found out there was such a big vulnerability to the homeland, they held those back to protect it.
Now, wasn't their plan, right, was to take off from the Hornet, bomb Japan, and then they were going to land in China, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
So they had a couple of airfields assigned in China, but when they were doing the math, they knew damn well when they took off, the best thing they could do was crash in China.
Oh, they were never going to make them.
They were never going to make it. The most likely thing that was going to happen is they were going to crash in the water.
Well, you know what happened, Jake? Is the Hornet was spotted.
Yep.
They were afraid they were spotted early.
Yeah.
They couldn't get close enough.
That's right.
Yep.
To make it. So they all were going to ditch. What was interesting, though, is Doolittle gave every crew the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to fly it. And everyone to the man said, nope, we're going with you.
He even had people fighting over who was going to go.
Trying to get on there, right? Yeah. Did they take
one of the guys?
Did they take full crews, or did they strip the crews down?
No, I think there was still full crews to the aircraft.
Because I mean, you didn't need.
Yeah.
I mean, they took all the guns out, right? I think, didn't they?
Yeah, they took the air-to-air guns out and just stripped everything they could possibly get out of those things to get them to take off.
Yeah.
On that deck of the Hornet, because that had never been done before.
That's so ballsy. That is crazy.
As a result of this mission, Doolittle was awarded the Medal of Honor.
Huh. Wow.
It's a big day for us, man. Big day.
April 12th, 1942.
No. April 18th.
Oh, April 18th. Okay, 1942.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking A. So they went from 4 months. That's nuts, too. Come up with this cockamamie idea, and in 4 months you do it. Wow.
Yeah.
Air Force would never allow that.
They had to strip. Well, that was the thing. Remember how we were talking about the F-4? They had to do the Wild Weasel project because they were getting their butts handed to them by the stamps from Russia.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, let's go. And it was a super quick turn where they took F-4s and secretly stripped them down, fitted them with a back seat, invented the weapons officer position, invented the radar detection tools, and shipped them over to Vietnam and said, okay, let's figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've always done this where it's like the people that could see long distance, big long-term strategic planners are people that are like, that'll never happen. Right. We don't want to waste time. We don't want to waste money. We don't want to waste people on it. And yet later on in any conflict, we're like, hey, we need to make a change now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Right. Remember, the convoy situation with the IEDs, they came out with that Rhino system where it was basically a cell phone jammer on a long stick or a long metal bar in front of the lead convoy guy.
Because they were sending signals with their cell phone to detonate.
Yeah, and they were jamming. So it was a cell phone jammer that was going, 10 yards ahead of the freaking lead convoy jamming signals.
Well, what the crazy thing with this mission was because there were so many B-25s on the deck of the Hornet, the Enterprise had to fly launch and overhead reconnaissance. So it really put both the Hornet and the USS Enterprise at jeopardy.
Yeah.
Because one's flying overhead cover for one that's trying to launch B-25s.
Yeah.
If that thing went south, you could have lost two carriers.
A lot, man. And credit to the generals. They're like, okay, Colonel, I think you know what you're doing. I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
But they knew, or they had enough foresight to say, if we hit Japan on their home country, it's going to cause them to flinch and pull back so much.
Yeah.
And it's going to send such a message, whether it was a successful great bombing raid or not. It's going to send such a message that
intimidation for sure.
It really crimped their plans for their offense in the Pacific. Yeah.
And
those guys that the stories of the survivors and how they got out of China and how they got everything to like an extraction zone is crazy. That is it's an interesting story though.
Kudos to FDR too, because FDR is the one that told Doolittle, find me a way to hit Japan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
At least that's what the movie said.
Well, I believe that occurred. Roosevelt, I think, really is the one that said we need to hit them on their own on ground, show them they're not invulnerable.
And Doolittle said,
"There's a book.
You get me Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett. I'll hit you."
if you're ever really interested, there's a book called Target Tokyo by James Scott. Willie turned me on to this book.
Yeah,
and it's the story of the Doolittle raid, and so it goes from right after Pearl Harbor to the attack to the extraction of all the guys.
Oh, very cool.
Target
Some
Tokyo.
Of the wounds. Yeah, Target Tokyo by James Scott.
Cool.
I think we can all agree that this little raid was paramount in us winning the war against Japan. I really do believe that.
Well, it bought us some time at least, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, good choice, Eric.
If we establish air superiority, that's like we've realized that step number one tends to be that because we'd get freedom of movement and freedom of action.
I can't remember the stat, but we haven't had ground troops attack from the air since the 60s, I want to say.
Vietnam.
Yeah. I don't think we've had ground troops attacked by enemy air for that long because we've established air superiority. That's pretty badass.
That's a good call.
For a country, that's pretty badass. Good day in history, Eric. Awesome. That was one of your better ones, actually. Speaking of history.
You're welcome.
Speaking of history, the U.S., we're going to rewrite some history here. From the Air Force Times from last week, Thule has now been renamed. Its new name, I'm going to try this. Well, I'm going to spell it first. Its new name is Pituffik, and it's pronounced Pituffik. Pituffik. But it's going to be Pituffik Space Base. In an April 6th ceremony at America's northernmost military installation. It is located 695 miles north of the Arctic Circle and 947 miles south of the North Pole on the northwest side of the island of Greenland. Thule is from a Latin word with the same spelling meaning northernmost part of the habitable world. That's pretty good. I never knew that. I don't know why they chose Latin.
You're out there.
Yeah, I was way up north. Alan Leventhal, the U.S. ambassador to Denmark, of which Greenland is a territory, said, "We recognize the important role this installation has played in ensuring our countries and all of North America have remained safe and secure. I hope Pituffik will become a symbol of our cooperation in science, climate, and space research, the common defense of our countries, and the stability of this amazing part of the world that is so vital for our survival." Let's see. There are around 150 people stationed up there. It's surrounded by ice for 9 months of the year. The only way in is on privately contracted flights that arrive weekly from Maryland. The military also relies on a fleet of specialized LC-130 transport planes equipped with skis to move cargo. So why did they rename this thing? That's what I was wondering. So I went to Wikipedia, and the name Pituffik was a hunting village of the Greenlandic Inuits, the Ka'ana'ak region of northern Greenland. That was pretty good, actually. I got to.
Yeah, you pronounced it very well
because I practiced it like 3 times. Like I can't say this thing. Of northern Greenland, which is located, was inhabited for several thousand years. First settled 4,500 years ago by the Paleo Eskimo peoples migrating from the Canadian Arctic. And then the bad news comes in. Forced relocation. In 1951, the United States was given permission to build Thule Air Base at the site of the settlement. Between 1952 and 1953, all residents of Pituffik back then and nearby Dundas were forcibly relocated 130 kilometers north, even colder,
farther north,
to the new town of Ka'ana'ak, commonly known at the time as New Ka'ana'ak or New Thule. I had to say it 3 more times. Where people were forced to live in tents from May 1953 until November of the same year, well into the polar winter, while the 27 new houses were constructed for them. They stuck them in tents. I'm sure they had heaters, right? The total cost of the relocation amounted to about $1.5 million US, which more than half of that was covered by the American side. So Denmark and the U.S. paid that out. So we got a new name, because we forced those people off the property.
Something we were really good at from, the first time the Columbus landed, we started pushing Indians west. So
that's what we do. We're pretty
the
good
indigenous
at it.
people.
We're pretty good at it. But it's Greenland, right? I think they're like, oh, people are living there. Well, why don't we just do it like 5 miles? No, we want that spot. It's like, what's it's an Arctic plain.
You seen the view? We're taking this spot.
Look at those lights. We're not missing
The ice over there.
Guys,
More
you got to
lights.
go. We got tents for you, though. Crazy. So
So
anyway,
helpful.
they renamed it, I guess, to ease the guilt of moving those guys out. But it's not like we force marched them. It wasn't Trail of Tears and Thule.
It may have been for them.
They're
You
like,
don't know.
hey, we
That's
got
only
these.
because they froze before they hit the ground.
Yeah, maybe.
Trail of cubes.
They just slide them.
Oh,
We got these new tents.
Oh,
We're
man.
calling them Thule tents. And you can get a bike rack. Do you want a bike rack? A Thule bike rack? We'll give you that. Which is kind of funny that Thule, the last place you think about riding a bike, is now the name of bike racks on every car you see driving around.
that's ironic, isn't it?
That's ironic.
That's ironic.
Okay. Moving on to military.com. A GOP lawmaker wants to raise the military's minimum wage. And that's kind of a misnomer. Not minimum wage. It's the wage of the lowest guy, right? But Republican lawmaker Representative Mike Garcia, a Republican out of California, is renewing an effort to boost the salary of the lowest paid service members. Under his proposal, okay, remember acronyms, guys? Think of the word RAISE. RAISE. What acronym could you make out of that? Or what title could you make out of that? Well, this guy did it, right? So his act is called the, quote, Raising Annual Income of Service Members by Enhancing Minimum Base Pay Act. So the RAISE, Raising Annual Income of Service Members by Enhancing Minimum
Can we
Base Pay
identify
Act.
the think? Can we identify the think tank that came up with that?
Oh,
Enhancing.
I don't know. That's a good one, Senator, Congressman. Good
It's
one.
a think tank. Oh,
He's introduced this several times, right? Over the past years. He reintroduced it last week that service members would be entitled to a base pay rate of at least $31,200 per year, or the equivalent of $15 per hour for the 40-hour work week. Now, didn't we talk a couple of weeks ago about why go in the military when you're making less than the guy working at Burger King on the base?
absolutely.
Yeah,
We did.
I was trying to look for that soundbite because I wanted to play it because I'm like, look how prescient we were.
Straight on
Congress-
time.
Congressman Garcia said, to build the military of the future that will deter aggression from China and other adversaries, we must be able to recruit and retain qualified Americans to serve in our military. The simple reality is that we can't do that if your local fast food chain is paying more than the armed services. Boom! Look at that.
Talk about on point.
You must have been listening to the podcast.
Holy cow.
That's where he
On
got.
point.
Right now, the most junior members of the military make about $22,000 in base pay annually, not including any stipends such as BAH. So that's just base pay. The minimum wage in Garcia's bill roughly amounts to what an E4 with at least 2 years of experience makes right now. Sounds good. I mean, they should make, especially if they're thinking, what's your idea for getting people in? How about tattoos on the neck? Yeah, they're in. How about ponytails? Yeah, you're in. How about giving them more pay? Shut that guy up. Get him out of here.
A livable wage is helpful. for Christ's
yeah.
sakes.
Yeah, and he brings
especially when we're talking about WIC.
and
Yeah.
food
WIC
stamps.
is a
Right.
Yeah, food stamps and WIC is like a big thing,
WIC,
in the
WIC has been a big thing
junior
for a
high
long
level.
time. Yeah. I remember having
Yep.
soldiers in the Army back in the early 90s who were on WIC.
Yep.
So, and he addresses that. So good on him. It's coming up. Service members of all ranks are on track right now to receive a 5.2% base pay raise in 2024, which will be the biggest
5.2.
annual increase in 2 decades. But that's like, oh, we gave one that was 5.0. This one's 5.2. What a big difference maker, right?
Yeah.
But lawmakers have expressed interest in reforming pay scales and allowances beyond the annual raise amid concerns that junior enlisted members are struggling to afford basic necessities such as food and housing, especially given high inflation. Congressman Garcia went on to say, some 23,000 service members, many of whom also provide for their families, rely on food stamps just to make ends meet. That is 23,000 soldiers too many. Now, here's a great quote. If the government is paying for our service members to live on food stamps, we may as well pay them on the front end through base pay. I was like, yeah, that's a great philosophy, right? I mean, if you're gonna spend that money, government money, to get food stamps, well, shit, yeah, give them a little bit more pay, or up their BAH, right?
You know what the problem with that though is, depending on where they're stationed, what installation they're at. If you're here in Denver, inflation's much higher here. You're still going to be below the poverty line.
You are, right?
Even with that raise, a 5% is not going to make a difference.
Yeah, you can't rent an apartment.
No, go somewhere maybe like Mississippi or Alabama or something. Maybe.
Right. Maybe. Garcia is a member of the House Appropriations Committee. He's introduced his proposal several times in recent years as an amendment to the annual defense spending bill. Last year, it got voted down, with most Democrats opposing and most Republicans supporting, of course. While Democrats said they agreed with the sentiment behind Garcia's amendment, they argued it was a piecemeal approach that could negatively affect other quality of life issues such as housing, since the raise would have needed to be offset with other funding. So they're not going to give a raise to these guys in the military because now they're going to play, what are you going to draw down to free the money up for the military?
Well, this also, if you think about this, we've had conversations about our retirement and how there's a difference between base pay and all your benefits, right?
Yeah.
If we got paid counting all of our benefits, can you imagine what our retirement level would be like?
Yeah.
Also, the new blended retirement, which is basically a 401k with 2% match initially.
Right.
And it goes all the way up. Once you've been in for a couple of years, it'll go up to a 10% match of your base pay only, but you have to contribute 10%.
Yeah, you can't get the 10%. You get
those
what you
junior
put
airmen that are already on WIC are like hurting.
Right.
And there's one quote here about the blended retirement. For an E4 with 4 years of service, contributing $5,000 of his, or 5% of his base pay, equals over $3,000 being saved each year.
Jesus.
Wow.
And that's they're like, oh, look at this.
This guy's rolling it.
E4. Yeah. If E4 at 4 years of service, they're only going to match 5%.
Yeah.
And they only have to contribute, the government's going to only contribute $3,000.
It's nothing.
It's not.
That's your withdrawal penalty. Yeah.
Yeah. And now look at that. Like, for a lot of people, that pension or retirement was a huge deal. Right?
Yeah. Right.
I know at 10 years, at 12 years, I was like, nope, I'm not getting out now. I'm going all the way.
Well, that is the first decision point, right? It's like, well, you already did over 10 years, might as well go all the way. But then the real one is, when you get about 14, 15, especially when they were offering that early out or that early retirement at a lesser rate. That one's, that one you gotta go at that point, right?
You got to think about it.
Pentagon officials have said pay and benefits updates need to be examined more comprehensively, pointing to a study already underway known as the Quadrennial Review of Military Compensation. That study, which is required by law, is meant to review whether pay and benefits are keeping pace with an evolving economy. That study must be worthless because I don't think it's ever kept pace with an evolving economy. You know, in terms of looking at junior enlisted ranks, we have and we continually assess what bonuses, benefits, other incentives may apply to them. Navy Undersecretary Eric Raven said at a hearing last month. Now, here's the one quote that makes me think. I would have concerns about pulling out several rates for a general pay raise because it could cause issues of pay compression, which is an interesting way to say it, pay compression compared to higher rates. So I think what he's saying is if you take an E1 and you bump his pay up to what an E4 makes, good for that E1, E2. What about the E4? You have to bump his pay up because of the rank, right? I mean, you can't have them both making the same amount. Everybody starts
your entire
at E4
rank
pay.
Your entire rank structure has to be adjusted.
It's got to trickle up, right? It's got to.
That's absolutely.
You know, because otherwise, which is probably deserved. But here's another thought experiment. You want to do this thought experiment with me? If you're gonna do it, you've captured audience. If you were given a choice, if you could get a higher base pay throughout all the years that you're in, but your disability is going to be cut or it's going to be harder to get, would you take that deal?
I don't think I would.
I don't know because you can't ever rely on the VA disability ratings.
True.
Right.
Right.
And that can be taken away. It's constantly under review.
Right.
You know, it could be taken away in the first 4 or 5 years.
And it could be up to the doctor. It could be up to the VSO. You know, you get some guys on a good day. You know, my brother went over to Afghanistan and got like 20% of all the jumps and all the hikes and all the crap that he did.
Yeah.
And you know, other guys, you get a doctor on a good day, and he's like, "Well, yeah, you're easy 70." Yeah, you got.
Well, here's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
What good does the little bit of increase in your basic paycheck when you were 20, you just came in, is it really going to have that much of an impact on what you did as an E1 through E6?
Well, and that's a good point too. But if you're talking about going from, let's say,
but with that blended retirement, that could be the difference between, you know, tens of thousands of dollars
over the course of a career. Yeah.
Over the course of a career. Yes. And the one thing is that if you get out at 4 years, you get to take that with you. You're automatically vested.
And you're unlikely to get disability and all that other pay anyway, right?
Yeah.
So let's do this then. His proposal takes a junior enlisted pay from $22,000 a year annually to $31,000. So almost 10 grand more a year. Would you take 10 grand more a year over the course of your career? At every rank, you're getting 10 grand more. If there will be like, yeah, it's going to be unlikely for you to get, you know, disability pay. Would you do that?
I think people would.
You think you would, Jake?
I think a lot of people will. Cash in hand, you know.
Well, if you think back to when you were E4s and E5s, and you were going paycheck to paycheck, probably, right? As we probably all were. You know, 10 grand more a year could make a difference, right?
Yeah, that's true. Especially not knowing
at that level.
Yeah,
right?
and not knowing the impact of this disability money for you at the end of your career.
Sure. Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. But I don't know. I'll take the 10 grand a year and then work on not being able to sleep I'm still trying to get that VA money. So anyway, at least they're thinking about it. It'll probably get voted down, which is pretty stupid with all the other recruiting incentives they're doing, but it does open up a bigger problem. We just give a flat raise we just raise the pay scale for everyone in the military, especially when you're talking about that review is supposed to look at, is it keeping pace with the economy? And then you go, okay, here's a guy 15 years in. Is he what a 15-year professional in whatever industry? Is he in line with making that? I know they're not doing that because he's underpaid, or he or she is underpaid compared to the civilian side. And then you roll a career like space, they're severely underpaid compared to what the space contracts are. Anyway. So he's trying to push it forward. So that's good. Good thing. He'll probably get voted down.
Good on him.
Who knows? Good on him. Okay, so this is a bizarro story from the NavyTimes.com. The headline is Sailor's Killer to be removed from Arlington thanks to a new law. So this is crazy. Apparently, this former Navy guy, Andrew Chabrol, he's deceased now, right? He was he did a career in the Navy. Let me just read it instead of trying to summarize it. That'd probably be easier. After 30 years in a place of honor at Arlington National Cemetery, the remains of a former Navy lieutenant who kidnapped and murdered a sailor will be disinterred. So how did that happen, you ask? Well, former Lieutenant Andrew Chabrol. I don't know how to say his name. Chabrol, Chabrol, Chabrol. He secured above ground burial for himself in the Navy, isn't that rare to get above ground? That's like mausoleum stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, they have all those mausoleums.
Okay. Well, he secured above ground burial for himself in the nation's most revered veteran cemetery while awaiting his execution by the Commonwealth of Virginia in 1993 for the murder of Petty Officer Second Class Melissa Harrington. At the time, the Navy simply did not have legal grounds for excluding him since he completed his service honorably. So he retired or completed his service and then went back and killed this Petty Officer Second Class. So after he was out.
Wow.
And what the Navy and the VA, all those who run who gets into Arlington, they just looked at his 214 and go, shows honorable discharge. He's good to go. And it was like, he's sitting on death row. And they're like, yeah, but his service. And so
was honorable.
It was honorable. So he was put to death for this crime. He passed, or he was put to death for this crime, and they buried him in Arlington. But as news got, somebody got a hold of this, Representative Jackie Spire, a Republican out of California, she got wind of this and she put a movement together, but her and some of the surviving members of Melissa Harrington, the Petty Officer Second Class who was murdered, put a move together to start making noise of like, why is this guy who killed our daughter in Arlington National Cemetery? So what they did, they put this movement together and they put it into the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act. They put this specifically, which is crazy about what's tucked into each piece of legislation, especially something that's this specific was put into that National Defense Act and passed.
Wow.
So, it was passed in December 2022. It was a provision introduced by outgoing Rep. Jackie Spire from California that requires the Secretary of the Army to remove Chabrol from Arlington by September 30th and transfer his remains to next of kin, or if no one responds to the Army's request to dispose of the remains as deemed appropriate. They put that specific thing into that National Defense Authorization Act.
And this is for the only That one incident, and that's why.
Yes.
Wow.
They said they were trying
That's
to make it
pretty
more
amazing.
general, but they decided against it and just put it just for that guy. One guy
Wow.
in legislation.
Seems like an awful lot of money and time.
I know. But
when those resources, when those resources could be used for something else.
Well, what else is tucked into those bills? That's what's scary, right? I'm sure there's a ton of it. I didn't know they could do something that specific, but they did. Congresswoman Spire said, "It was appalling to me to think that an officer in the Navy could sexually harass, then kidnap, then rape, and then murder a sailor and get buried at a national cemetery, which is supposed to honor our war heroes and our dead." So he has no place in that cemetery.
I concur with her.
Yeah, I think everybody would, right?
Yeah.
You want to hear what his crime was?
I thought I just did.
No, you haven't. Melissa Harrington, she's the petty officer second class. She was just 27 at the time of death, had complained to Navy superiors about Chabrol's intimidating behavior when the two served together in a Virginia Beach unit. The 34-year-old officer, Chabrol, was allowed to complete his term of service and leave the Navy. In 1991, he kidnapped Melissa Harrington from her home, bringing her to his own house, where he and an accomplice raped and tortured her. When she managed to free one of her hands and hit Chabrol, he, quote unquote, went berserk, according to his own testimony, and strangled her to death. Chabrol was quickly arrested after Harrington's disappearance, and her body was discovered rolled into a rug inside his home. Court testimony would reveal that he had been plotting revenge against Harrington for months in a journal, calling his plan, quote unquote, Operation Nemesis. He named his own plan.
And he journaled about it.
Wow.
Lastly, Judy Farmer, a retired Navy senior chief petty officer who began agitating for Chabrol's removal from Arlington after learning about the case in 2018, told Navy Times that the disinterment would bring solace and relief not just for those who knew and loved Melissa Harrington, but also for sailors who sustained sexual assaults or trauma while serving. She went on to say Andrew Chabrol felt that it was his last act of thumbing his nose at Melissa Harrington to be buried in Arlington. So it's nice for her to get the last word. And I think they were both buried in Arlington. That blows my mind.
She deserves it. That's just crazy.
Jesus. So, what's that?
Get him out of there.
Yep.
But for him to go in the first place, come on, you process watchers, I mean, you really just going to throw up your hands and go, well, his DD 214 says honorable.
Break down a common sense.
Nuts. Anyway, okay, we have reached that part of the show where we choose our all-military selection. This week, it is propeller-driven bombers. Got that, guys? Propeller-driven bombers.
Yeah.
So our standings to date are, I have 2 wins, Jake has 2 wins, and Eric has 4 wins.
Hey now.
And you know what? I think the first win was just a gimme because we were just experimenting.
You're not taking away my
and I also think last week was a gimme too. Because you jumped on the M2 real quick, the M2 machine gun, which was clearly
I chose that from the get-go.
I should have taken the gal.
You probably should have. That was a mistake by you.
At least he would have had competition.
Don't worry, he's out of the running this week. So who won last week? Oh, Eric won. So you get to go last. So you go last, Eric.
Yeah. You can go first. I'll let him.
It's a good thing.
No, because I'm dying. I'm going to give him a little bit more time to read up. So
you can practice reading the article.
Oh,
All right, I chose a B-17 Flying Fortress from Boeing. The rugged B-17 heavy bomber was developed as a strategic bomber in the 1930s. And it was my favorite bomber as a kid, making models. And it's the coolest bomber looking, out there. It proved efficient enough to where it was proved efficient enough to where it was used in every theater of the war. It was legendary for its ability to sustain heavy damage in battle and bolstered by its nearly self-sufficient firepower. B-17s were most often used for daytime raids over Germany, as well as to wreak havoc on enemy shipping in the Pacific. It dropped more bombs than any other aircraft during World War II. More bombs than any other aircraft. And it is...
I agree.
And is the
let's caveat that this is a heavy bomber.
It's the third most produced bomber of all time. All right. Had a crew of 10. Its max weight was 65,500 pounds. Had a 4 Cyclone turbo supercharged. That's like every word for an engine you can shove in at one thing. Turbo supercharged radial engines, 1,200 horsepower each. Its maximum speed was 287 miles per hour. Its range was 2,000 miles while carrying a 6,000-pound bomb load. Service ceiling was 35,000 feet, and its rate of climb was 900 feet a minute. That's pretty damn good for a heavily laden, heavy bomber. It had 13 M2 machine guns on it. So it was truly a flying fortress. It served in Europe, of course, with the 8th Air Force, but it also served with Doolittle's 12th Air Force in North Africa, as well as being stationed in Australia in support of the defense of the Philippines. It was because of the B-17 and its durability that the Allies were able to conduct precision daylight bombing raids on Germany and bring that machine to its knees eventually, after it got a lot of them shot out from underneath it.
Yeah.
Famous for the raids on Schweinfurt, Regensburg, and Bremen. And here's the topper. Many B-17 crew members received military honors, and 17 B-17 crew members received the Medal of Honor. 17.
I did not know that.
Best bomber ever made. B-17. Go ahead and beat it.
Or they got into such shitty situations that it required excessive heroism.
Which they obviously displayed.
Yeah. That's on the members, not on the crappy equipment.
Oh, so I'm sure all the other bombers had that many Medal of Honor winners, right? How many Medal of Honor winners on the B-36 Corsair?
Hey, don't go there yet. Don't go there.
Hey, Marty, how many were made? I'm sorry, I missed that one.
I think it was, I can't remember. I think it was like 5, almost 600, I think.
1,000, 6,000.
Yes. If you knew the answer.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I was just.
I'll give you the answer I gave for a career. Sir, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah. I was getting ammunition to prove that the B-25 Mitchell is the better bomber. Same era, same timeline. The only bomber named after an individual, right? Billy Mitchell, who, unfortunately lost the best generals list in this movie. But
not by much, actually. Not by much,
but changed tactics in the bombing world and the air world to this day, right? So the Mitchell is the one, like Eric brought up earlier. That's the one, the bomber that ran off, wasn't designed for aircraft takeoff or carrier takeoff, but yet they retrofitted it as mission needed, put it on the Hornet, and then took off from the Hornet to do the Doolittle raids.
Yeah,
that's
very cool.
This one's capable of payloads of. Come on, man! Freaking took my shit away. Payload of 2,400 pounds, carrying over 1,200 miles at 300 miles per hour. But the Mitchell, the number built was 9,800, and you mentioned that and probably because it got shot down significantly less than the other one, but it was once again in every theater in World War II and excelled and carried on operations for 4 decades after World War II.
Ooh, that's a killer to the beast.
That's a long record.
Nearly 10,000 were built in a variety of different forms. They actually experimented for a while and stripped it down and made it a reconnaissance aircraft.
Really?
Because it was durable and reliable. They did the island hopping campaign. It enabled the island hopping campaign throughout the Asia Pacific area. It was in Middle East and Italy, right? 380th, Corsica Blue, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. The RAF actually flew Mitchells. The Russians flew Mitchells.
Yeah, they all flew the B-17s too.
Yeah,
that's true.
Here's one little tidbit that might be entertaining to you on the durability of this aircraft, right? The Mitchell, incredibly sturdy. I'm going to pull an Eric here and read it verbatim. No, I'm just kidding. There was one B-25C that was assigned to the 321st Bomb Group, and they nicknamed it Patches because after every single time,
good nickname, yeah.
They would paint the flak holes with primer yellow. By the time this thing got done, it had been belly landed 6 times.
Jeez.
It completed over 300 missions, had 400 patch holes. And the frame of this aircraft was so distorted from battle damage that to fly it straight and level, it required 8 degrees of left aileron trim and 6 degrees of right rudder trim.
Just to fly it level.
So it literally crab walked across the sky because it was so bent. But that's just going to say, like, the durability of this aircraft, the versatility of this light bomber is amazing. And it did change, much like Marty's, but it did change the method and that war significantly.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I mean, it wasn't the Enola Gay. It wasn't that.
True.
Okay?
Right.
But
wasn't a Memphis Belle. Right?
Its claim to fame was definitely flying off the Hornet. So that's a big plus, without a doubt.
That is, I mean.
Yeah, that's ultimately what that ship did. That was pretty damn impressive.
But that's probably one of the singular acts of the century, really.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty big. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, guys. Both good choices.
B-29, the actual Enola Gay?
I don't know. Did he? What? Now we're on our seat, edge of our seat.
I'm excited.
So I was torn. I picked an aircraft that apparently did not meet the criteria of the best bomber.
You mean of actually not dropping a bomb?
That's correct.
Yes.
However, I do want to honorably mention this aircraft because of what it was going to do and what it was designed to do. So during World War II, the U.S. was concerned about long-range bombing. Germany was kicking the snot out of UK. They thought, Britain was going to fall. So the idea of flying from east coast of Canada to Berlin was becoming a main goal, a main objective, because they knew they were going to have to hit Berlin long range. So the powers to be came up with the design of the B-36 Peacemaker. 10 engines, 6 turning, 4 burning, 4 of the jet propelled came in later, started with 6. The slogan of 6 turning and 4 burning through the jet engines were typically only used for takeoff, but they're never required. My bottom line here, guys, is this aircraft was in service for 10 years with a nuclear deterrent against the bear from 49 to 59. Though it did not drop a bomb in anger, if had it done its job, I would have thought that it would have been the best bomb. On to my second choice.
Wait, Eric. The cool thing about that Peacemaker is that the engines are mounted backwards.
That's correct.
It's a prop plane, but
Yep.
on all the other prop planes, the propeller's on the front of the wing.
Yep.
And on this Peacemaker, the propeller's actually on the back of the wing.
And
like pushing it.
It was 2 times the size of the B-17, or I'm sorry, the B-29.
Yeah.
And the payload was twice the load, and the range was twice the range of the B-29. Pretty impressive aircraft, but I know it did not meet our criteria. So my selection for meeting the criteria was the B-24, the Great Liberator. This aircraft was part of World War II in that same era. And I just want to read a quick story for you. 3 squadrons of B-24 Liberators, Goliath 4-engine, 56,000-pound bombers streaked towards Germany to strike Hitler's vaulted Luftwaffe. The reason I'm reading it is B-24s had participated in the first attack on German soil, bombing a submarine yard in Wilhelmshaven. That was Germany. So the first bombing of Germany was from a Liberator. Okay, first bomb dropped, B-24. Pretty amazing. Turning the tide in Europe, conceived by Consolidated Aircraft, the Lockheed Martin Legacy Company, the B-24 prototype was designed to fly faster and carry a larger payload than the U.S. Army Air Corps' B-17 Flying Fortress.
Well, was it? It was just Lockheed back then, was it? Or was it Martin?
It was Lockheed Martin Legacy. Oh, it was Lockheed. You're correct. Consolidated Aircraft Company, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
In time, the B-24 would boast a long, tapered wing atop its fuselage, which allowed impressive long-range cruising capabilities. The B-24 could reach 290 miles per hour and carry a 5,000-pound bomb load for 17,000 miles, giving it a longer range, greater speed, and bigger payload than its B-17 cousin.
Wait, how far did you say its range was?
1,700 miles.
Oh, 17. I thought you said 17,000. I was like, geez.
No, 1,700. I may have said 17,000, but it was 1,700.
All right. Well, that sounds less than the B-17. Sounds like it carries less than the B-17.
That's not what it says here, my friend. Don't
range of the B-17, 2,000 miles with a 6,000-pound bomb load.
B-24 could reach 290 miles per hour and carry a 5,000-pound bomb load for 1,700 miles.
Yeah, it's carrying less bombs. So
this says giving it a longer range, greater speed, and a bigger payload than its B-17 cousin.
I think that's inaccurate.
Although retired by the end of the war, the B-24 saw service in every theater of the conflict, from Africa to Germany and India to the Pacific Islands. In total, a stunning 18,482 B-24s were produced to wage war against the Axis power. No other American combat aircraft in history was produced on such a large scale.
Yeah, the
B-24 is your winner.
only made 12,000. But that's because they were so durable, they didn't need to make that many.
They were falling out of the air by all the flak, man.
Oh, you don't need to build them when they're still flying.
I don't know if we're going to find an answer on this one.
That's tough.
Oh my goodness!
Continue on. Have to open it up to the public again.
I'm waiting for the Medal of Honor winners out of B-24s. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe I'll search that for you.
Google that right here.
Okay. Continue.
Marty, you got what?
17.
Oh, okay. 17.
That's a pretty good number.
Well, it's amazing when I've seen some of those documentaries and all that stuff. And that air war, especially the bombers, 57,000 casualties.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. In one career field, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, finish out. What else do you have on the second place B-24?
Second place. That's third.
Oh, we're going to have an outside source choose this one.
B-24 does look good. I do.
Yeah. Actually, all three airplanes, this is the closest one because I'm going to stick with the B-17 because that's always been my plane since a kid. But the stats in different areas for each aircraft are pretty undeniable.
Agreed. Each of them has a very good story. Each of them.
Okay. Well, we'll throw it to the listeners and hopefully we get some comments. Tell us who you think is the winner of the all-military propeller bomber between the B-17, the B-24, and the B-25.
And B-36.
B-36 went the way of Douglas the Camel, baby.
Eric's comment of the first one to bomb Germany. Whatever, it's connected. All right. It's a campaign in Europe. You didn't have to retrofit anything, risk 2 naval vessels and just to barely throw it off a ship.
Don't backpedal now. The aircraft stepped up
mainland Tokyo
and performed its mission hitting Germany, man.
With the best bet. They knew taking off that the best bet is they're going to crash in China somewhere.
We're not talking about the crew. We're talking about the plane.
I'm talking about that plane was flown to the very, very edge.
That's true.
That plane was stripped.
It was flown beyond its edge. Really?
Yeah. Taken to so far that it was well beyond its capabilities.
And here's the other thing with that mission. It had very little impact on its targets. Whereas my B-24 took out a submarine pin in Germany.
Yo. Get out of here.
Now, if you said it hit several moving submarines, I'd be like, fucking heck, that's the best, right?
Yeah.
Took out the pin, though. Took out where it stored submarines.
The static pin.
That's a stationary base.
Well, that's what bombers are supposed to do. Hit stationary targets.
We didn't have hardly any intel of mainland Japan.
Oh.
The only thing we had was a couple of guys 5 years ago that were looking around as liaison and drawing maps and shipping them back to the Doolittle.
Hey, we couldn't have done the daylight raid without the B-17.
A daylight raid.
Daylight precision bombing.
Because it couldn't handle going at night.
Yeah, they're just dropping bombs all over the place like the like the Mitchells.
Hey, by the way,
some water. Were there subs parked there at one time? Yep.
Got him.
By the way, the Liberator was known for its precision bombing, much better than the 17.
For everybody.
All right, listeners, it's up to you to help settle this debate. Please let us know which bomber is our all-military selection.
In depth.
On behalf of all of us here, I'd like to thank you for listening today. Please like, share, subscribe, and let us know how we did in the comments. And please vote on your choice for the all-military propeller bomber. And as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service headline news. Man, thanks for the week, and I'll see you next week.
Good night, fellas.
Hey, Eric, I think the reason you like that other bomber so much is because you find so much similarities between it and you. It's all show and no performance.
Maybe that's true.
And like the B-36, Eric is about to be retired too.
Without any
sticks burning, 4 turning, baby.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.